For the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, let's make sure that the stream is alive and well on all of the different platforms on which we multi-stream. Got to make sure that YouTube is cranking. Looks like it's working. Let's check some of the others before we kick it off into high gear. Facebook is alive. We're alive on Rumble. Shout out to user1121. We've got Twitch is now available, which is amazing. And we're on Twitter, which means that's all of them. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We've got judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice. And it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today. A lot of news to talk about. We're going to start off by diving into what's going on with one particular January 6th defendant. The guy's name is Christopher Worrell. We're going to take a look at what he's been charged with and really what happened in court today. Very interesting thing happened. The D.C. Warden of the jails and the D.C. Department of Corrections head both got cited or found to be in civil contempt of court. It's kind of a big deal. Judge Royce C. Lamberth was the federal judge who did that, and we're going to explain exactly why that happened. Essentially, Christopher Worrell was not being properly treated medically, and the judge just backhanded the D.C. correctional facilities. So that's very interesting. We're going to see what their excuse was for this, but I've got some good documents that we'll be able to run through. Then in our next segment, we're going to take a look at Loudoun County, I think that's how you say it, Loudoun County out in Virginia. Father of a student over there, a guy by the name of Scott Smith, was arrested because he was upset. He was speaking out at a school conference, one of these parent-teacher conferences, and he got arrested. They didn't like what he had to say. Turns out why he was so upset, well, his daughter was raped. Shouldn't be laughing at that, but it's insane that this man is going through what he's going through. Daughter got raped by allegedly a transgender student, and there's an indication, there's a hint here that maybe the Loudoun County Public School system covered the whole thing up. So we're going to go through that. Oh, man, something's been going on with the schools. We talked about schools earlier, I think this week, out of Florida, just sexually assaulting all the students over there too. So it's wild times. So we're going to take a look at that story. Loudoun County Public Schools, and the guy's name is Scott Smith. And then in our last segment, we did not forget about Hunter Biden. No, we did not here. New emails came out. The Daily Mail actually has this as an exclusive. They were able to get their hands on some new emails that were sent from Joe Biden's son's, Hunter Biden, from his business partner back over to Hunter Biden. And there's some pretty spicy meatballs in there that might actually implicate Joe Biden. Something about commingling some accounts. This other individual who is a co-founder with Hunter Biden, there's some indications that maybe he was being the point person to facilitate a lot of inquiries coming in on behalf of Joe Biden. So in other words, why would a book deal go to Hunter Biden's business partner rather than the vice presidential office? Good question. Well, we're going to take a look at that and more. The guy's name is Eric D. Sherwin. And so we'll see what his emails look like and how they fit into the context of the Hunter Biden FBI probe that may or may not be going on. If you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're building a nice community over there. This morning we had a little pre-show show prep show exclusive for locals. It was this morning at 10:30. I thought it was pretty nice. Tried something new. And so we're going to be doing more of that. But if you want to be a part of today's show right now, And you remember, this is the form that you can use at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You can use this form, and we'll do everything we can to get to your questions. If you can, of course, keep them in order. That certainly helps. Also, if you're looking for the clips of the show, please head on over here to the Clips channel. I'd appreciate a subscribe over there so that we can continue to grow that audience as well, because a lot of people can't stick around for the entirety of the show. All right, and so let's get into the actual news of the day without any further ado, shall we? We're going to start off with the January 6th judge. That's right. The D.C. Department of Corrections, the D.C. Jails Warden, both got held in civil contempt today, citing irresponsibility in dealing with January 6th protesters, or the political prisoners that have been housed in the D.C. jails and the prisons there for quite some time. The case involves a guy by the name of Christopher Worrell. He was a January 6th defendant. He's been held in custody this entire time, and he got into a little bit of a medical problem, had an injury to his hand, and when you're in government custody, they have to take care of you. They can't just throw you in a jail cell and say, well, good luck to you. You're on your own now. They've got an obligation to make sure that you're not being treated inhumanely. And the judge in this case that held the D.C. warden, the D.C. jailers in contempt, found that the U.S. government wasn't meeting their burden. They were denying, or at least failing to present evidence of medical records regarding this man's medical treatment. So who is Christopher Worrell? Let's start at the top. This was from the FBI affidavit. You can see the FBI was doing a great job playing Where's Waldo here. They're very good at this game. And so you see this circle. Oh, they found him. Oh, Christopher Worrell. There he is, standing in a crowd. So you got a whole bureau, whole floor over there at the bureau of FBI agents just playing Where's Waldo all day. So that was one example. Over here, they got him again. Oh, there he is. Over here, you've got Where's Waldo over here, Christopher Worrell out there. And here's another one. So we have an officer over here, and Christopher Worrell apparently is taking a photograph. So 3 for 3. Nice job, FBI. Pat yourselves on the back there. Got him. So let's take a look at the court docket. The court docket now. He was charged for his involvement over at the January 6th protests, and he's been sitting in custody ever since. And his attorneys have been trying to get him out of custody because this wasn't an insurrection or the crime of the century, even though many people are making it out to be so. But the point here is he's been in custody. He's been trying to get out, and we're going to pick up the court docket early on here in October. So let's take a quick look at what that looks like. This is over from the federal docket. We can see here that there was a notice that was provided by the USA on the medical status of the defendant, right? As I mentioned, Worrell is in custody. The U.S. has control over his body, where he can go, what type of treatment he can get. And so when this situation happens, the courts are regularly asking for updates. How is his treatment going? Is he sitting there? Is he getting the medical attention he needs? And so we've got 2 updates on this. The U.S. government provided this to the court, just called a notice of an update. They gave one on October 1st. They gave another one on October 8th. And then you'll notice right on October 8th, there's an order here signed off on by the judge. We're going to take a look at that. And so let's just frame this out. Somebody's in custody. The defense is saying, hey, my client's in custody. He needs medical care, and they're not giving it to him. The judge says, oh, is that true, Mr. Government, Mr. Prosecutor? They say, oh, no, Judge. No, totally. We are giving him the best care. We're the U.S. government. Everything we do is perfect, so don't worry about it. The judge says, well, I don't know. The defendant over here is saying opposite. So the judge says, okay, well, let's just monitor this for a little bit. Why don't we just continually check in, give us an update, let us know on how you're treating this individual, and then the court will just make some decisions on how that's going and make some adjustments. So that happened back on October 8th. The U.S. government provides another update, but then the judge just responds and issues an order. Uh-oh, what's that order all about? We're going to take a look at what that order says. Then, remember this guy, John Pierce? He's gone. He leaves the case on October 8th. And we have another one, Ramsey Kadora leaves. He's gone. And so then we get what's called an order to show cause. And so we'll dig into what that means. But he's got a different lawyer now, I presume. But you can see that the judge issues an order to show cause. And that is not a good thing to get. Doesn't matter what you are. If you're a lawyer, if you're a prosecutor, not good. He says the warden of the D.C. jail and the director of the D.C. Department of Corrections, they are ordered to appear and to show cause why they should not be held in civil contempt. Oh my goodness, that sounds really scary, especially if this is a federal judge. And so that happened yesterday, and you'll notice that that hearing was scheduled for today, October 13th. So yesterday, the judge says he issued an order back on October 8th. We haven't looked at it yet, but then we fast forward a few days, and the judge says, damn it, I am unhappy with this, and I want to see you people here in court on October 13th, and you have an order to show cause as to why you did not comply with my October 8th order. Not happy about it. Then we had a court proceeding today, which we're going to break down. So let's get into it. Let's start with the October 8th order, the first order. And remember what we're talking about, medical treatment of a January 6th political prisoner by the name of Christopher Worrell. What we see here is the order. This is coming from the court now. This is coming from Judge Royce C. Lamberth. It says, upon the party's notice about the update about defendant's medical status, the undersigned contacted, meaning the judge contacted the acting U.S. Marshal Lamont Ruffin, wanted to inquire about the notation that was on the records. The notation that was on these medical records says, the surgery for Mr. Worrell's finger fracture is still in the process of approval by the U.S. Marshals. Says, well, okay, so the surgery is still in the process of approval. The judge must be going, well, I've been asking for updates and all. What's taking so long? Why is this not approved? Guy's finger is fractured. What are you just like, you're going to get to surgery like 3 months from now? The damage may already be well done by then. So the judge says, okay, I'm going to go figure out what the heck is taking so long. So then the marshal, Lamont Ruffin, explained to the judge, says, despite repeated requests from the U.S. Marshals Service, the medical branch, the D.C. Department of Corrections, the D.C. D.O.C., right, has not provided the actual narrative specialist notes from Dr. Wilson, who actually evaluated Mr. Worrell and is recommending surgical repair. So what happens here now, back on October 8th, is judge calls the marshal. Marshal says, listen, we're trying to get this thing figured out, but the DOC, they're not giving us the medical records, and they conducted the original underlying diagnosis, and so we can't really do anything here at the marshal's office until we get communication back from the DOC. So it's government finger pointing. Okay, we're very used to this everywhere you go. Oh, it's not us, it's them. Oh, no, it's not us. It's the Capitol Hill Police. It's their responsibility. No, it's the House Sergeant at Arms. No, it's the Senate Sergeant at Arms. No, it's Metro PD. No, it's the National Guard. Everybody points their fingers around at everybody. Meanwhile, the FBI is playing Where's Waldo in their bureau. So this is what's going on. Everybody's pointing their fingers, so the judge says, enough already. I don't care if it's the marshals. I don't care if it's the jail. I don't care if it's DOC. We need some action on this. And so he says specifically, ordered right now that the DC jail and the DC Department of Corrections submit this information forthwith. See this language? We're going to take a look at what that means here in a second. So he's telling them, DC, DOC, you got to get this information over to the Marshal Service like stat. Right now. Don't even play around. Also says, ordered that the D.C. jail and the Department of Corrections are to resubmit the medical request with the appropriate requested information. Look again here. Forthwith. Uh-oh. Not happy. And also says that the U.S. is now ordered to ensure that a copy of this order is also provided forthwith to the D.C. jail and the director of the D.C. Department of Corrections. He says, file forthwith, once again, with this court a copy of anything that is provided by the Department of Corrections to the U.S. Marshal Service. This is signed off on by Royce C. Lamberth, District Judge, on October 8th with wet ink signature, right? So he is seriously serious now. Really very, very. So what we're seeing is that word forthwith a lot. What the heck does that mean? Well, it means what it sort of sounds like. It means forthwith. It means immediately, promptly, without delay, within a reasonable amount of time under the circumstances, which means like right now, like I want it now. Okay. Not 2 days from now, not 3 days from now, immediately. Judge was unhappy about it. And they didn't comply, did they? So then we fast forward now, 4 days later, that order went out on October 8th. The judge is just going like this. October 9th doesn't come around. Nope, nothing there. October 10th, nothing there either. 11th comes by, the 12th comes by, and the judge says that's not forthwith enough for my liking. Comes back and issues a order now. So this order came out yesterday. This is the order to show cause. So let's take a look at what this means. Here you can see Judge Royce Lamberth is not happy. He says, listen, everybody, On October 8th, the court ordered the D.C. jail and the D.C. Department of Corrections to provide forthwith, and he even underlines it here. You'll notice that nothing else on this page is underlined, but forthwith is, which means right now. And they didn't do that. He said, I wanted forthwith the actual narrative, the specialist notes from the orthopedic, the specialist, Dr. Wilson. Court also ordered D.C. jail and the D.O.C. to resubmit the documents I asked for. Today, the court received an email notification from acting U.S. Marshal Lamont Ruffin. Remember him? Talked about him a couple slides ago. That's who the judge called. He says that the D.O.C. sent the U.S. Marshals the following email back on October 8th when the judge ordered it. It says, good afternoon, Marshal Haywood. Please be advised I spoke with the medical team. Resident Worrell is scheduled for a reevaluation by the hospital surgeon next week on October 14th. And you go, oh, a reevaluation? He was already evaluated, wasn't he? Those were the records that the judge wanted. So why does he need a reevaluation? The judge didn't say give him a reevaluation. He just said send the docs over. Because Dr. Wilson was the person who actually already conducted the exam. He says that the D.O.C.'s medical team has requested from the surgeon's office that Mr. Worrell return to the facility with the appropriate medical note. D.O.C. will then provide the documentation following the return from the medical appointment. Uh-oh. Judge notes the D.O.C. provided no additional information to the marshals. So the judge just took one look at that email and said, okay, well, it is clear that neither the warden of the D.C. jail nor the director of D.O.C. have complied with the court order from October 8th, nor have they sought any reconsideration of the order. I said provide the documents forthwith. You have not done that, and you haven't asked for reconsideration. You haven't explained why you can't provide those orders. You haven't done anything other than send an email saying, oh, we're not sending you anything, and schedule him for a reevaluation because maybe we don't have the records. Who knows? But that's not what the judge asked for. So the judge was very unhappy about this. Says, okay, ordered then D.C. jail warden Wanda Patten and D.O.C. director Quincy Booth. These are the two people, Department of Corrections, jail warden D.C. Wanda Patten. You are to appear to show cause as to why you should not be held in civil contempt. That was scheduled for today at 10 a.m. October 13th. It is ordered that the U.S. ensure that a copy of this order is provided. Send one over to warden Wanda Patten. Send one over to director Quincy Booth. And so what that means, in order to show cause, right, that's sort of the first step when a lawyer is in some serious deep doo-doo. Not good. It means that you are being hauled into court to explain yourself. The judge asked for something. You didn't do it. The judge wants to know what the cause was. What's the basis for this? Why didn't you do this? If you have a good reason, then the judge can say, okay, well, that's a valid reason. I didn't know that you got hit by a bus. That makes sense why you were not in court that day. It's a good reason. So I'm going to vacate the order to show cause. We'll reschedule you for another pretrial conference after you are done with your time in the hospital, right? That's a pretty good reason why you might have missed a court date or why you might have not followed a court order. In this case, the judge is saying, you didn't provide me these documents. You didn't provide the U.S. Marshal these documents. You didn't do anything that I asked for. Therefore, I'm going to schedule a time for you to come in and explain yourselves. That happened today. But before the judge listened to the arguments and issued a final ruling about whether to hold these two people in contempt, the U.S. government responded and they said, oh, wait, judge, wait. Before you consider holding us in contempt, please allow us to explain ourselves. And so they submitted this motion earlier today. You can see here, the District of Columbia, the Department of Corrections, they're asking here, this is their response to the order to show cause. So the judge said, you're in trouble, get your butts in here. And they're saying, wait a minute, this is our response. So earlier this afternoon, the court entered an order that the D.C. jail warden and everybody show up. This is why we are opposing this. Here's what they're saying. The court issued the show cause order after concluding that the D.O.C. failed to provide forthwith the actual narrative from Dr. Wilson. Earlier this afternoon, they say, the D.O.C. provided Dr. Wilson's notes to the U.S. Marshal Service. So same date, right? They're presumably saying today. Finally got it. So they show up to the order of the show cause hearing. They're like, here's the document. Don't be mad at us, Judge. according to them. Then they go through their legal standard. They say, well, the court does have some remedial powers to issue these orders to show cause. Let's see here. It's an inherent power. Civil contempt is an extraordinary sanction, they say, that should be imposed with caution. So their argument here is going to be that courts should use this with restraint and discretion. So it's like, yeah, we know we kind of screwed that up there, Judge, but, a civil contempt, that's kind of a big deal. I mean, we were just, look, it's just a January 6th, by the way. Who cares about those people? So, it's just a finger also. Nobody cares about that. So, yeah, we were delayed a couple days, but don't hold us in contempt because that is a serious remedy, and the court should exercise caution. So their argument now, based on that standard, says that the court should not hold anyone in D.C. jail in contempt for two reasons. Number one, we did actually provide those notes back on October 12th. So that was one business day after the October 8th order. So they said it was the weekend, Judge, first of all, right? October 8th, what day is that? October 8th was a Friday. Yeah, it was a Friday. So the judge entered the order on a Friday. And if you're a U.S. government prosecutor, well, you know what that means. Constitutional rights just don't extend into the weekend. They just don't. Court orders, they don't either. If somebody's sitting in custody and it's just a long extra weekend and he needs surgery, it's not your problem because none of the ordinary constitutional protections apply on the weekends, obviously. So, but they do for the rest of us, you and me and this judge, but not the prosecutor. So the prosecutors come out and they say, well, it was a weekend, Judge. We got back on Monday. Monday was the 11th. We were all still hungover. So we finally got to work a little bit on Tuesday and we go, oh, shoot, we've got an order to show cause tomorrow. The judge is so mad at us, he's actually hauling us into court. So they scramble. They get the records over to the U.S. Marshal Service on October 12th. And they're like, yeah, no, sorry, it's late. They say the D.O.C. made a good faith effort to substantially comply with the October 8th order. So they were just on, prosecutor time. That's okay. Civil contempt is a coercive tool, they say. And this is, a really big hammer to smack down on the government. The government doesn't get hammered, at all, ever. But so this is a shock to them. They're going, wait a minute, you're going to hold us responsible for something? We're shocked. And so they had to draft this motion quickly. They say, second, that a D.O.C. made a good faith effort to also to substantially comply with the request. Upon receiving a copy of the order, at the Department of Correction, their lawyer contacted the agency's medical staff. They went to go get Dr. Wilson's notes. Please note that they do not work on the weekends or on the holidays. So the notes were completed today. D.O.C. made good faith efforts also to substantially comply. And they say for the foregoing reasons, Judge, because it was a long weekend and we're busy and, life sometimes gets in the way, we're asking respectfully that the court does not hold Warden Patten or Director Booth in civil contempt. And Judge, we're also asking that you just cancel the hearing that's scheduled for today, Wednesday, October 13th. That was signed off on here. Attorney General for D.C. is Carl A. Racine. We've heard from him. And the actual author of this document, Chad Copeland. Okay. He is a deputy attorney over with the civil litigation from the Deputy Attorney General's office. Okay, so they go through that. Judge, it was a long weekend. We tried, we've been really sweating over here. We're, busy investigating a bunch of parents for terrorist threats when they're mad at their school boards. So we're busy. Will you let us off the hook? Is that okay, Judge? We're prosecutors. We're on your team. What does the judge say? No, you're both in civil contempt. He issues an order filed today. Says, well, for the reasons that we talked about in open court, it is a judge, the warden of the D.C. jail, Wanda Patten, director of D.C. Department of Corrections, Quincy Booth, are in civil contempt of court. Look at that. There is it. There's the money. Says the clerk of the court is ordered now to transmit a copy of this order to the Attorney General of the United States for an appropriate inquiry into potential civil rights violations of the January 6th defendants as exemplified right here in this case. Assistant U.S. Attorney William K. Dreher can provide the appropriate records from the case. Whoa. So the judge is referring this back over to the U.S. Attorney General. and saying, you better investigate this for civil rights violations. Your prosecutors are violating the civil rights of Christopher Worrell, a January 6th defendant. You have kept him in custody. You're not providing updates on the medical status as ordered to the court. I've asked you multiple times for these documents. He's sitting there wondering about getting surgery done on his hand. It sounds like he already had an evaluation. Your incompetence said he has to have another evaluation. As soon as they issued the order to show cause, the prosecutors go, oh crap, we have to actually do something here. So then they finally get the records over there. They apologize to the judge. Oh, it's just a long weekend. And we're sorry, we're very sorry. And the judge says, that's too bad. You're in deep doo-doo now. And all of this is being referred over to the U.S. Attorney Generals for civil rights violations, as it should be. So you start to just, some days you read a nice order and it just kind of sits well, doesn't it? So those were the updates on the January 6th case. Good news for Christopher Worrell. We'll see where this goes. So it's going to be a civil rights violation investigation. Who's that going over to? Oh yeah, Merrick Garland. What's he going to do about it? Nothing. So it's nice. It's really nice. It's a nice victory, but it's probably going to be symbolic in nature only. Now, depending on what they do about this, if they satisfy Judge Lamberth, this could be something that, if they one of the sanctions, judge might just say, okay, well, the case is just dismissed now as a sanction for violating this man's civil rights. Yeah, it's you lose the case. You violated his civil rights. Whole thing just gets thrown out. So that might be a good thing for Christopher Worrell. Let's take a look at what you have to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and over in the chat, we've got some activity. I see chatting away. Let's see here. We have another question. Some questions are coming in on this one. Let's see here. Okay, so we have Peely Wally's first up. Says January 6th, the crime of the last 100 years, it seems. Breadth, math, easy, Hitler, George Bush, Tony Blair. Let's not talk about the illegal wars or the war crimes in Iraq. That's from Peely Wally. Well, yeah, I mean, it was almost the downfall of America, as they told us. We have another one from Vienticus Prime, says that the ridiculousness continues with this, and people will applaud this mistreatment of people and justice. It's just like the line from Star Wars, this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause. And more ridiculous, do you see what the FBI has manhunts over? Capital violence. The first video is some guy whacking the riot shield off of a cop with some kind of a stick. That's obviously a deadly weapon. Yeah, I've seen a lot of those. I mean, if they really think that somebody, was a traitor committing insurrection, they should have charged them with some of those things. They've got videos here. Yeah, I'm looking at these, Vienticus. Thank you for that. Let's see what else. Any other questions on this topic before we jump into the next one? We have John Halgren says, can you explain the difference between civil and criminal contempt? So criminality would be something that it's basically what it sounds like, right? You've got sort of a procedural violation that doesn't amount to criminality. But if you did something that sort of amounted to criminality, that'd be criminal contempt. So like, for example, if you did something illegal in the course of a trial, right? Then that would be like I can't think of anything because I've never done anything like that. But if you were trying to get certain evidence in, if you were, fabricating something, manipulating evidence, or manipulating a witness, or putting undue pressure on a witness, or somehow interfering with the process in a way that is sort of knowingly, maliciously, criminal, you have sort of a higher level of culpability. So when you think about it in terms of, let's say, even philosophical legal jurisprudence, you've got the mens rea, which is the mental state, and you've got the actus reus when we're talking about criminal law, sort of a guilty mind and a guilty action. Here, what you would see would be a guilty mind. Somebody was knowingly trying to tip the scales in their favor, and they did something wrong. But a civil case like this, right, it could just be incompetence. It could just be they just screwed something up procedurally. Maybe they really, did everything they could. Don't know yet. But it's not. It doesn't amount to the level of criminality, but it does amount to the level of referring this over for further investigation. That's kind of the long and short of it. So good question, John. Nadarb says, quite funny how when it's the government that is potentially facing punishment for their actions, they are all of a sudden all about restraint and second chances. But man, when that 19-year-old kid comes in after he's been caught with a little bit of weed, they suddenly care about the responsibility and teaching a lesson. The government should get zero chances Mess up and get punished, scumbags. That's from Nadarb. Good to see you, Nadarb. A few more on this one is from Sergeant Bob. Says, methinks we have not heard the last from the honorable judge. Have heard a lot from Royce Lamberth on this channel. We've read some of his stuff and been very favorable of it and said, wow, that's like this. Okay, dang, way to hold him accountable. We've read some other topics from him and we've gone, what the hell is he talking about? I think it's this judge. Let's see. We've got Peely Wally says, what a world this is we live in. Worries me living in the UK, because things that happen there always seem to reach the UK. The January 6 troubles aren't even about us here in the US, but I bet it changes things here. Probably. I mean, I think the pivot to really be aggressive with domestic terrorists, right? The idea of homegrown extremism and all of those DVEs, domestic violent extremism, all these things. I think that January 6th opened the door to have that conversation. And once that door gets open, you can see how the snowball just gets bigger as it rolls down the mountain. Now, teachers at PTA or parents at PTA meetings are, pseudo terrorists, right? I've gotten thrown off different platforms on the internet because I am somebody who might be a white supremacist Nazi, according to some, morons out there. But it's just how, I think it's just how things go. Once there's an opening for the power structure to go in and seize opportunities, they're going to do that. And I think you're right. They're probably going to use the imagery you saw here to justify a lot of that stuff overseas. Jay He says, I read online that Judge Lamberth is a Republican, was appointed by Reagan. Glad to see there is at least one good person in the lion's den, Washington, D.C., fighting for our rights. Yeah, it was a pretty dang good opinion. And I don't want judges to be biased at all, but I just want judges to give both sides a fair shake. If the government's going to screw something up, well, needs to hold them accountable, just like they do a defendant or a defense attorney. We had another super chat that just came in from Wolfgang Deo. What's up, Wolfgang? Says, wait, what? The doctor is not good enough to figure out the issue with without prior information? How dare these B words hold up medical treatment over papers? Yeah, it's not ideal. And the judge gave them a nice little backhand, didn't he? Let's see, over on Rumble, shout outs to Ravencraft is in the house, chatting with user 1121. Viking channel is here, talking about soccer moms, and the left created this. Yeah, there's a lot of some activity going on over there. Shout outs. We have over on YouTube, shout outs to Wolfgang, Zulu, Jimmy W, Stace on the case. I saw somebody up there earlier saying, we're not even talking about anything that you're discussing on the show, Rob. Somebody said something like that, which is okay. That's okay. Yeah. Talk amongst yourselves. That's great. It's all about community here. But those were great questions and support from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Okay, so we're going to move into our next segment. What's coming up next? Loudoun County. That's right. Loudoun County is where we're going to change our attention to. Loudoun County Public School System, a little bit of hot water, allegations that they maybe covered up a sexual assault of one of their underage students. Not good. If you've been with this channel for some time, we've been talking a lot about the school systems and about how there may be some problems that are worth investigating. The Daily Wire did a great job on this. They talked about this story involving a guy named Scott Smith. You can see a picture of him here. On June 22nd, this article was written by Luke Rosiak. On June 22nd, Scott Smith was arrested when he went to a school board meeting. It was deemed an unlawful assembly. A lot of parents were there. They were vocally upset about this policy that impacts transgender students and, of course, the rest of the school. We're going to take a deep dive on that policy. It is interesting. They made a frequently asked questions section, and so we can just sort of see how they're telling us this is going to be applicable. But that's sort of a tangent on the story. The bigger issue here is that what people did not know, the reason why Scott Smith went to this board meeting in the first place, the reason why he was so upset is because weeks prior, on May 28th, allegedly there was a boy wearing a skirt in a girl's bathroom at Stonebridge High School, and that boy allegedly wearing a skirt allegedly sexually assaulted Smith's 9th grade daughter. Now, hard to get details about this. Juvenile records are sealed, but Smith's lawyer, a woman by the name of Elizabeth Lancaster, told the Daily Wire and Luke Rosiak, who wrote this piece, that the boy was charged with 2 counts of forcible sodomy, 1 count of anal sodomy, 1 count of forced fellatio, all related to that incident. Attorney says if someone would have just listened for 30 seconds to what Scott, this father, had to say, they would have been mortified and heartbroken. And so you're going, what? How does all of that happen at his school? And the only recourse, the only place that this guy has an opportunity to address the matter is in front of a school board? Yeah, I can understand why he would be upset. So let's dig into this story a little bit further. I want to show you this clip over from Fox News last night. They were all over it. And this is Luke Rosiak, the author of that piece, detailing a little bit more about what he found. Here he is.
Yes, this story is one of the most disturbing I've ever worked on. It raises the possibility that the Loudoun County Public Schools covered up the rape of a 14-year-old girl at the hands of a boy wearing a skirt in order to pass a school policy that Democrats were adamant about passing. And as a result of concealing that, a second girl was raped last week. And to prevent all of this from coming out, potentially, they arrested the father of the victim, tried to put him in jail.
What?
And he's now the face of domestic terrorism, listed individually by the National School Boards Association, all for coming to that meeting. He didn't come to that meeting because he's a bigot. A lot of people thought they knew that guy. They trotted out his picture, his embarrassing picture with his belly hanging out and his bloody face. They all thought they knew him. They knew nothing about him. This was a caring father who was involved because of something very personal that happened to his daughter. And if they would have shut up and listened to him for 30 seconds, they would have been heartbroken. Instead, they demeaned him. They arrested him.
Yeah, that's terrible. Okay, so the allegation is that the school board is essentially covering this whole thing up. The guy goes to the school board to have a conversation about it, gets upset. School police are there. He gets branded a domestic terrorist. You can see this is an image from the scene, June 22nd. Now, timeline is important. If we rewind back a little bit, the original incident they're saying happened on May 28th. So we got May, June, and then on June 22nd, he's dragged out of the Loudoun County School Board challenging their transgender bathroom policies, right? And you can see why he might be upset about it. Says he was trying to tell the room his daughter was raped by a boy wearing a skirt in the girls' bathroom just weeks earlier, and the school ignored it, is his claim. Here's another picture. He was arrested, charged with disorderly conduct. Don't think that those charges are going to stick, but haven't followed up on it. Fox News gives us the timeline. So let's frame this out just for a minute, because it does, I think, maybe show some interesting culpability or just head in the sand behavior from the school board. Here's the headline. Here's the timeline, rather. Fox News says that the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office gave a statement. They say on May 28th, we can confirm that there was a case that involved a thorough 2-month-long investigation. It was conducted to determine the facts of the case prior to the arrest. They're saying the case is still pending court proceedings. Remember, May 28th is the case involving Scott Smith's daughter. Don't know her name. All these are juveniles. The Loudoun County Sheriff's Office is not able to provide any documents about it, but they can confirm it involves sexual assault. So that the father's not making this up, right? The sheriff's office is actually investigating it. They confirmed that they did a 2-month investigation. They've been looking into this thing. They're doing their deep dive on this. Can't comment. It's all juveniles. But yeah, sexual assault. Yeah, May 28th. Okay, that's the father. So he's been verified by the sheriff's department. Then on June 22nd, right? So now the investigation has been going on for presumably just less than a month, right? May 28th to June 22nd. Father is just tired of nothing happening and goes to the school board and, gets arrested at that school board meeting. At the June 22nd school board meeting, Ziegler, who is the head of the board, says publicly that the predator transgender student or that person simply does not exist, and that to his knowledge, we don't have any record of assaults occurring in our restrooms. And you're going, what? That was a January 22nd board meeting. Scott Smith just got arrested on January 22nd. The sheriff's office allegedly had started their investigation. It was going to be a 2-month investigation, but they were presumably well in the middle of it from May 28th all the way up until June 22nd. And at the board meeting, Ziegler doesn't have any idea that that's going on and says, we don't have any record of assaults happening in our bathrooms. What? The sheriff's department are actually investigating it, and you had a father who wanted to speak out, but you threw him out. You arrested him and dragged him out of the courtroom. out of the boardroom. We have then on August 11th, okay, so the investigation is presumably still ongoing. So August 11th now, they're having the board, they vote on this controversial transgender policy. It's called Policy 8040, requires teachers to call students by their preferred pronouns. We're going to take a look at this here in the next segment, or the next section. It requires that bathroom renovations are also made to make them more private. Okay, so again, we're at a high school now. We're going to be talking about whatever pronouns they want. We're going to dive into the policy here in a minute, but they're also going to be doing bathroom renovations to make them more private. Interesting. If you're going to be talking about remodeling bathrooms, if you're going to be talking about transgender policies, and you're voting on these things and you're having public board meetings to have conversations about this, might it be a relevant fact to talk about the fact that there was allegedly a transgender student who raped another student in the very bathrooms that are the subject of your ongoing discussion? It might be relevant. I think it's relevant. I could be wrong. Obviously, the school board didn't think it was that particularly relevant, so they just went ahead and they approved it. They just yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem at all. Transgender, no problem. Don't even have to discuss it. Nothing even to talk about, because according to Ziegler, they don't even have records of this. Oh my gosh. Then on October 6th at another school, a 15-year-old boy was charged with sexual battery and abduction of a fellow student. That's, again, according to the sheriff's office. The boy allegedly forced a female victim into an empty classroom, held her against her will. Reports connect the two assaults, although police have not confirmed if they involve the same male students or whatever that student identifies as. So, if it's the same student and the school didn't do anything about it, the school moves forward, actually votes to approve the bill, eliminated all of the oppositional narrative in the form of throwing Scott Smith out of the board meeting, and then the student goes and does it to another student. That sounds like gross negligence to me, or something even more significant. Let's take a look at this policy 8040. You can see this is the public statement. It was passed by a vote of 7-2. Minor amendments were made, but they gave us this down here. This is the frequently asked questions segment, so we don't have to go through the litany of the law. We can just take a look at what they're going to be showing us. Before we do, quick note, here is the arrest record, or the press release from the Sheriff's Department that does indicate, yep, October 7th, have another teenager from Ashburn arrested with sexual battery, another fellow student at Broad Run High School. Happened on the afternoon of October 6th, 15-year-old suspect. Victim immediately reported it to the school resource center. Suspect is held at the juvenile detention center. Cannot name him. Also not going to name the female victim. So that's not so good. Let's take a look at the frequently asked questions. See if we can glean, what is this policy? What is Policy 8040? The rights of transgender and gender expansive students. These are frequently asked questions about this. What is Policy 8040? Well, they're committed to all of these things, and they wrote this document, and a lot of, very, very interested bureaucrats are affirming the commitment to provide equitable, safe, inclusive learning environments for everybody, regardless of their sex, sexual orientation, transgender status, gender identity, or gender expression, which are very complicated terms. I don't even know what those mean. Given the broad range of topics relating to the treatment of transgender students that are required by law to be addressed by local school boards, we recognize that, we have existing policies, but we need more stuff to be more gender inclusive. And we have to emphasize special protections for transgender, non-binary, and gender expansive students. Okay, existing LCPS policies are cross-referenced to Title 9 is federal law. All right, so you see all of that there. Now, here is how they're going to implement this. So sometimes the implementation is even more interesting than the underlying law, right? You have a law that says, okay, the law says you have to call everybody by their preferred pronoun. You go, okay, fine. How are you going to do that? How are you going to actually implement that? Okay, what if a student who's, gender dynamic or whatever wakes up and wants to change their pronouns? Like, is there a system for this? Do you send an email? Today I'm going to be them, theirs, and she, or whatever. How does it work? So implementation is very interesting. So now let's take a look at it. We have policy number 5. How will the Loudoun County Public Schools address transgender or gender expansive students? Well, they have to follow the guidelines, obviously, and they tell us that a transgender student may adopt a name that is different from their legal name on their birth certificate. They may use pronouns that are reflective of their gender identity. Student is considered transgender, so we have a definition, if at school the student consistently asserts a gender identity different from the sex assigned at birth. Okay, so as long as they're consistent about it, sounds like they'll respect that. This should involve more than a casual declaration of gender identity, but it does not necessarily require any substantiating evidence nor any required minimum duration of the expressed gender identity. So it says school staff shall, and you note that, right? Shall. Teachers don't have an option to not do it. At the request of the student, they use that and their pronouns consistently. When a parent or teacher does not agree with the student's request, so we have a conflict now. Student wakes up and says, it's him, her, his, and their today. And they say, well, I think you're a she, they, and her. And they go, no, it's a me, he, and a it. And you say, okay, well, we have a conflict here. This is going to be problematic, and so we're going to have to come to a remedy. Well, they give us some guidance. If they disagree, the staff will discuss, and they may develop an alternative that respects both the student and the parent and guardian. So you can sort of maybe negotiate proper gender pronouns. I don't know how that works, but okay. The process will require consideration of solutions to address the student's emotional needs, to be affirmed, as well as assisting the family in developing solutions in their student's best interests. It's just amazing. When I was a student, I sort of had enough on my plate juggling sports and academics and, existential crises when you're 16, driving a car, all of those things. So I can understand, why the need to also have a very deep-rooted other existential crises sort of shoved in students' face and have these debates and have parent, teacher, guardians meetings over all of this and have daily declarations about your gender identity. Yeah, that doesn't sound complicated at all. Sounds like it's going to be very useful. Now, again, is there a system? What happens if somebody wants to change their pronouns and the teachers, are they on a mailing list? Do they get a text update? Today I'm whatever. Well, they have guidance for us on this. Under subsection 6, it says parents and students or students that are 18 years or older, they can indicate the student's name and their nickname each year in the student information system. All right, so it's just going to be put into a database somewhere. The Department of Digital Innovation is going to provide reports that include students' nicknames. So students or their parents and guardians may inform staff of their pronouns or their nicknames if they are not in the system. So it's going to be, they're just going to create a little bit of a tag, and you're just going to put your pronouns in there now. Pretty simple. And what about this? Can they participate in sports? Yes. School staff shall allow gender-expansive transgender students to appear in activities. Right? And I've always been somebody on this topic. It's like, are these really... I don't know, honestly. I really don't know sort of the scale of all of these issues. I mean, do we have like tens of thousands of students that are having gender identity problems? Because that wasn't a thing when I was going through school. So this is new to me, and I might just be a white guy. And so, what the hell do I know? I've been privileged and racist and basically, a neo-Nazi at this point. So what do I know about this? Maybe a lot has changed. Maybe I'm like a 600-year-old man that's just like, well, back in my day, we didn't talk about those things, but maybe the times have changed and I just have to get with the times. I don't know, but I've always wondered, is it really that big of a problem? Are we really killing each other over these bathrooms and these football games and these locker rooms and all these things over this issue? Is it really worth killing each other over this stuff? Is it that big of an issue? Well, getting raped in a bathroom, yeah, that's a pretty big issue. But aside from that, right, if somebody changes gender and wants to run on the team, is that going to wreck the whole program? If it is, well, then that should be something that is addressed locally, like this school is doing. And they are doing it in this manner. Let's continue on. So they are allowed to play in sports, which is okay, whatever. But how about this one? Paragraph 4 says, how will the Loudoun County Public Schools support the student if they're younger than 18 when their family does not affirm the transgender or the gender expansive identity. Uh-oh, this is a juicy one. What happens now if a student comes in and says, well, you know, I'm identifying as a me, it's, and they today, and the parents say, the hell you are. You are a he and a him. And that's the end of the story, son. When you get out to school there, we're not going to be doing the me, it's, she, they nonsense. You are a he, him. Student goes to school and says, no, I'm not. I'm a me, it's, and a she. And the parents get a phone call about this, and what happens? So we've got to have a conflict resolution, don't we? So let's take a look at how this school is going to do it. They talk about privacy and confidentiality. They say they're critical for transgender students. Disclosing a student's gender identity can pose imminent safety risks like losing family support or housing. All right. So they give us some research here about something, but then the school, which okay. So he says, thus, school staff should be prepared to support the safety and the welfare of transgender students when their families are not affirming. So, students over parents, if they're under 18, is what I'm gleaning from that. So even disclosing a student's gender identity can pose imminent safety risks like losing family support. So you got to stay confidential. You cannot disclose any of that. See that right there? Imminent safety risks like losing family support. So therefore, got to think about the safety when their families are not affirming. The school administrator and the unified mental health teams, they're going to need to consider the health and safety of the students in many situations. Going to have to address this on a case-by-case basis. So if a student is not ready or able to share with their family about their gender identity, then they've got to respect that. So the school is now going to be, I guess, the primary safe space for the student. The student's in a predicament. They've got parents at home who think that they know best for the kid. But do they really? I don't think so. Not according to this document, at least. What you have now is a situation where the school knows better than the parents do. And so if the student wants to confide in the school is a safe space. The school is where the trust exists. The school is really where most of the decisions should be made anyways, and where absolute autonomy should be placed. That the student really shouldn't have to do anything the parents say anymore, and so they can just go right into the soft, sweet bosom of the public school system. So it says that, got to respect that stuff. Also, school staff should work with students to help them so that they can share their information when they're ready to do so, and the school staff should provide information, referral sources about all these transgender issues, etc. So the schools, they're in charge of the kids now. Yeah. And that's just how it's going to be. Let's go back. So we took a little bit of a detour and we reviewed the policy, and now we can see why Scott Smith was so upset about this. So we're going to go back to the Loudoun County Schools. I know this is a longer detour than usual, but we're going to go back and we're going to see, well, this is what they were talking about back during that June 22nd meeting. They were talking about these policies. A lot of parents were saying, what? You're going to just sort of encourage my child to make who's under 18 to make these decisions, and you're going to hide this data away from the parents? You're not going to tell us about it at all? So they're a little bit upset about that. I think you can understand why that might be. So he goes back to the school. He wants to talk at this board meeting. And then the incident happens. That was back in May. Now, back after his daughter was raped, allegedly, by a transgender student, somebody who was at least wearing a skirt, male, biologically male in the, I think, can I say that still? Biologically male in the female bathroom. Father gets a phone call, says on the day of this incident, Smith says the school told him to come to the campus. His daughter had been physically assaulted. They did not say she'd been sexually assaulted. Once he got there, school staff told him they would handle all of this internally, choosing not to call the police for some unexplained reason. He was enraged by the decision, challenged them on it. School board then did call the police, but to report Smith, not the boy, for making a scene. What? I went nuts, he said. I called the principal a P-word. 6 cop cars showed up like a freaking SWAT team. School's principal sent out an alert that day warning parents of what had happened involving Smith, but nothing of the sexual assault allegations in the bathroom. It's unclear exactly what happened next, but Smith ended up in the hospital with his daughter. There, they told doctors what happened, and a rape kit was performed. Says, thank God I drew enough attention to it. Without getting arrested, we got to an escort to a hospital, and they administered a rape kit that night. The rape kit verified his daughter's claim. So they took it to the police and a case was open. So they almost arrested this stinking guy and didn't even listen to anything that he said. Haul him down to the hospital. Rape kit of his underage daughter. Turns out it's exactly what they said it was. The school was going to arrest him. Nothing to do with the boy. The teenager then was arrested 2 months later after the school board meeting, after an investigation by the sheriff's office. Sheriff says, we did respond. At that time, the juvenile was 14 years old, charged with forcible sodomy. After that, it goes through the courts. Then on May 28th, the case, that case at Stonebridge involved a different set of circumstances. The 2-month investigation led to the arrest. Spokesman for the sheriff's office said the case is still pending in court proceedings. Oh, my goodness, this poor father. He was on Laura Ingraham last night. Here's what he had to say.
This has been a crazy 3 months, but basically my daughter was sexually assaulted at the end of school in May of last year. And, I went to the school board meeting, to see what was going on because I had seen all this crazy stuff on TV. And I went to see what was going on after my daughter had been assaulted, and there was some crazy stuff being talked about. People for things, for against things. I wasn't there for any. I'm good with gay people, cross-gender people, everybody, anybody who wants to be a good American. I'm good with. I went there to find out why our children weren't safe. We were under the impression from the prosecutor that this sexual predator was being held on in-house arrest with an ankle monitor and would not return to school until these court sessions were done. That if I wanted justice for my daughter, that I needed to keep my mouth quiet and not speak out, because in order to get justice for my daughter, which is the most important thing to me, of course, was to not come out and let justice prevail. That's really scary, that our government is going to weaponize themselves against parents, and they're using my video across the nation to spread fear. That's wrong. I'm not a bully. I'm not a racist. I love everyone. I love this country.
All right,
and
Scott.
I want better stuff for it.
Right on, Scott. Right on, Scott. All right. So the school then comes out and they have a press release. They came out with this today. Let's take a look at what this says before we jump into the questions over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. This was sent over on Twitter by Mary Margaret Olahan. She's a reporter. And let's take a look at the statement here. It says, Loudoun County Public Schools were aware of the social media reports about sexual assault at our high schools. While we take this student's privacy seriously, cannot reveal details about the student, do want to clarify our process. Principals are legally required to report to local law enforcement any act, including sexual assault, that may constitute a felony. That process was followed with respect to these allegations. Says that the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office was contacted within minutes after receiving the initial report. Once a matter, though, has been reported to law enforcement, LCPS does not begin its investigation until they've completed their criminal investigation. So law enforcement has to go first. To maintain the integrity of the criminal investigations, law enforcement requested that LCPS not interview students until they concluded their investigation. So they've cooperated with law enforcement. Furthermore, public schools is prohibited from disciplining any student without following the Title IX grievance process, which includes investigating sexual harassment, sexual assault. LCPS does impose interim measures to protect the safety of students after the original incident, deter other things, and they have complied and continues to comply with its obligations. School board members are typically not given details of disciplinary matters, obviously, which is why the dummy who's in charge of it didn't have any idea that this happened. The board may be obligated to consider long-term suspensions, must ensure the students have not been deprived of due process. They were not aware of any specific details until it was reported by media outlets earlier the week. Unable to locate any records that indicate Scott Smith had registered in advance to speak at the board meeting. So that's why they threw him out. Because you got to register now. You got to go, you got formally up. I'd like to speak which I think makes sense, but they're making that more and more difficult, more and more narrow. It shouldn't be a free for all at these things, but he didn't register in advance, so that's disorderly conduct. You get arrested, thrown on the ground, made a fool of as a result of that. So the school board, we did everything appropriately. Nothing wrong here at all. We were going to arrest a father. We did call the police to arrest the father. So that's great. Let's see what you have to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. See if there's any questions here on this topic. I'm sure there are. Got a few of them. We've got Vientikis says, looks to me the school board is guilty of not believing all women. I guess it's time to hashtag me too, the school board. Yeah, what's good for the goose, as they say. Speech Unleashed says, from what I've read, the reason he got upset was because a woman wearing a rainbow heart shirt, a left-wing communist activist, told Smith she did not believe his daughter. Wow. His rage reached a boil, had heated exchange in words with the woman. Police officer there to keep the peace in the meeting pulled his arm. Smith yanked it away before he knew it. Smith was hit in the face, handcuffed, dragged across the floor with his pants pulled down. Yeah, because he was interrupting the narrative, right? You're not allowed to color outside the lines in these places. Everything needs to be done inside. I'm Not Gas says, this is in Tennessee, hardly a left-wing bastion. CRT transgender crap has infiltrated almost every school district in the U.S. Get your kids out of the indoctrination camps and start homeschooling. That's from I'm Not Gas. Not a bad thought. Sergeant Bob says, even the village idiot could see the matter of sexual assault crimes occurring with all transgender matters not be a matter of if but when. I taught high school for 6 years. I was a teacher's union member and officer. If I were in a union today and the union did not take a stand supporting parents' rights and protecting female students in particular and all this, I would no longer be a member. School administrators are no strangers to covering up criminal acts and keeping the police out of it. P.S. Never regretted leaving education. That's from Sergeant Bob, which is a sad thing, right? It's like Sergeant Bob would be an amazing person in education, but he can see what a problem it is. Thank you for sharing that, Sergeant. That's very good context. And yeah, right. The institutions like this are built to protect their own themselves, their interests. That's why I have such a problem with them. They always come out and say that, oh, we care about you and grandma out there. That's why we have to impose all of these policies. No, it's to bolster their own power at every single bureaucratic level, including school boards. They are not immune to this stuff. Look2G says, hey, Rob, great show again. Thank you for your great work. Thank you, Look2G. Says, if this report is true, there is a criminal charge that can be brought against the board, county, and sheriff's department, like negligence, failing to report, unlawful arrest. It would probably be hard to tie the board members to it, especially if they didn't know about it, right? If there's some stupid reason why they wouldn't know about it, that's a pretty stupid policy, especially if the board is going to be voting on school policies like transgender bathrooms. Wouldn't it be pertinent for them to know that a student was raped allegedly there was a transgender student who raped another student in the bathroom? They're having conversations about transgenders in bathrooms. And that literally just happened right before they came in and voted on the thing in June. So that kind of feels like gross negligence to me. It kind of feels like something nefarious happened there, but maybe not, right? Maybe the school board just doesn't know about these things and there's just a break in the communication. But then why are they voting on policies if they don't know what the ramifications of the policies might be? Kind of a dumb thing. So I'm not sure that you can tie them to any actual criminality, but they should all certainly, resign if they had anything to do with any of this. Slippery Slope says, remember when they said that saying this stuff would happen, like if you allowed boys into girls' rooms? Remember when they called that a conspiracy theory? Yeah, and bigoted, right? Bigoted, xenophobes, homophobes, transphobes, the list goes on and on. Vientikis Prime says, give the streams a thumb up if you're feeling the same way I am. Going to linking us over to a YouTube. We got a ton of questions. I can't pull that one up, Vientikis, but thank you. Thank you for sharing that and for the reminder to hit that like button if you could. I'm Not Gas says, Title IX is literally being manipulated to turn sexual predators into a protected class. You like that? Oh, we can't investigate rapes in our schools because of Title IX. Okay. Peely Wally says, wow, just wow. So what if the dad has a belly? He's looking after his child. I've just had a day of off work watching Dave Chappelle talking about this like that of the Troubles, but with humor. Mental disorders are being made to be nothing to worry about. How does a child, when even young, have the thought of changing sex? It makes no sense. It's all a mental play by the parents, and so on. Right. Look, I don't know. I'm not trying to be somebody who minimizes the struggle of somebody who is, suffering with these issues. I obviously don't I don't get it personally, but that doesn't mean I don't empathize with it. I understand that a lot of people have a lot of difficult things in their lives. A lot of people have, things that pull them in different directions, and we don't necessarily understand all of it. But I think it is important to have empathy and understanding, and that people go through difficulties. And as a society, I think that's the best way to approach things. If we're all a little bit more empathetic, that's a good thing. But I also think that a lot of this is being manipulated, that people are being taken advantage of. And we got to be asking ourselves, what are we doing to the kid? Why are we talking to 7-year-olds about gender changing their genders and things like that? It doesn't make any sense to me. But like I said, I'm just a bigoted white guy. Monster One says, is there anything the Democrats won't defend, literally protecting a rapist to push an agenda? Hopefully crap like this will wake people up to the depravity of the Democrats. I doubt it, Monster One, but we can be hopeful, can't we? Thunder 7 says, Rob, can the parents sue the school board on behalf of the 2 girls that were raped? So again, I don't know that they have any direct liability because they weren't really involved in any of it. Now, other people like, the principal there, if the principal, as the school statement said, they're supposed to call the police. If they did something to cover any of this up, if they tried to paper over this, if you did a Freedom of Information Act request and there's some, nefarious emails going back and forth between some people trying to cover this up, yeah, that I think might be something that would be, I don't know what kind of charge it would be. But it would be something like, failing to protect a vulnerable child. There's all sorts of different statutes that exist. If you're somebody who's in a position of power, you've got an affirmative duty to go protect students. It's part of your job duty, your description. The abdication of that responsibility, failing to do that, might lead to some criminal liability. Back to Thunder says, they transferred the boy to another school without warnings. That's why he raped the second girl. Allegedly. We don't know that yet. Surely they can be held accountable for allowing a rapist to roam free and hunt victims, not once but twice. I think only a multi-million-dollar lawsuit will bring justice and put the woke school boards on notice that they will have to pay the victims millions. The poor dad. Yeah, so you're exactly right? There is precedence for this. We talked about it earlier this week when we were covering the Florida cases. Her name was Harry Calvi. Remember that teacher? Where was that out of? Oh, Miami-Dade County. Yeah, there was like 6 teachers there who were all sexually assaulting their students, like back to back. Like 3 of them were in October of this year. And they just settled a case. They paid out something like $6 million to the victim of another teacher. So yeah, there is precedent for this type of stuff. But I don't think the school board itself would be the people that they would sue. It would be other people who are more closely connected to the nexus of the underlying assault. Ghost Gunner says, the whole gender identity thing is stupid, and playing along with these psychotic people got 2 young women sexually assaulted, forced to perform fellatio in the same school district. The whole thing is insane. I think it was just one fellatio. The other was just another version of sexual assault. Not that that makes any difference. Hunter Biden says, I now identify as Helen Biden. Rob, can you give me directions to the girls' locker room? Oh, Hunter Biden, we're about to get into you next, brother. Monster One says, it wasn't a thing when we were kids because there was no social media. This whole transgender movement is being manufactured by exposure to social media. That's true. There wasn't any. We didn't have those questions as kids. I don't know why it's changed. Look, 2G says, ever since the transgender issues in our schools became a thing, I've never understood why they don't just make a single person's unisex bathroom for students with a big lock inside of it to keep occupants safe. We update bathrooms all the time. Why is this not an obvious solution? Well, look, 2G, if you did that, we'd have nothing to fight over, right? If you created just a separate bathroom, like, these exist all over the place, like those family bathrooms where everybody can go in there and you just, it's a big one and lock it. It's individual bathrooms. They can't do that for these things. If they did that, that would solve the problem, wouldn't it? And we wouldn't have red, juicy meat to kill each other over on the news every day. So they're not going to solve that. No, of course not, because they'd rather see people at each other's throats. That way, nobody's paying attention to the running away inflation, to the slow whittling away of your civil liberties all the time. I'm not trying to poo-poo this as something that is not a serious issue. It really is. But this is just one little piece of the puzzle. If they can keep everybody fired up about this in the schools, they can do a lot of other more nefarious things, although this is pretty damn nefarious too. It's just everywhere. We're catching it from all angles. The Last Villain says, I don't know if that school would still exist. The mentally ill are running the schools and the country. Protections are being built into the law to protect the predators. Soon adults will identify as children. They're going to find a way into the middle school bathrooms. Hopefully, this affects the Virginia governor's race. Ooh, yeah, that's coming up soon, isn't it? They're a little bit panicky there. Thunder7 says, Rob, there are maybe less than 1% transgender students, but the Marxist Dems have pushed it to the forefront to cause division and hate. They are trying to destroy America. The majority of parents are opposed to all of this, the disgusting nonsense, including CRT. They're finally pushing back. Eventually, all the wokeness will be eradicated. The normal people are elected to local school boards, and common sense, once again, rules the day. Remember what Trump said, everything woke turns to doo-doo. That was from Thunder7. We have Monster One says, there's no way in hell the school should be keeping secrets from parents. This is how communists take over. It's all part of the agenda to indoctrinate the kids. Be Brave says, I believe the whole trans agenda is a push to move towards individuals who will not reproduce and for population reduction, wearing the tinfoil hat. Yeah, it's a good one, right? Because you don't have a sperm and an egg anymore. You just have gender pronouns, I guess. Monster One says, Steve Bannon said on Tim Pool that parents would rise up once they found out what schools were doing. He was absolutely right. People just need to take their kids out of school. I think I agree with that. Yeah, if parents have that ability to do that, right? If you can muster that, I think that's obviously the right choice. I'm Not Gas says that, correction, I thought this was Loudoun County, not Tennessee. Yeah, it's in Virginia. We have Dave Chappelle says, believe all women, unless it's a 9-year-old girl getting raped in the bathroom. That doesn't sit well with the transgender versus the victim narrative. Jay He says, I hope the school gets the pantsuit off of them. There's a big payday for the victim. This is disgusting and wrong on every level. Thank you, Jay Heath. I agree. Three Girlies says, how does the school get away with saying they're going to handle it internally? There are mandatory reporting laws in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Couldn't there be a lawsuit against the school board, etc., for not reporting the assault? That girl deserves every last support, and her father did what he could to solve the situation. By the way, this case makes me extremely angry on many different levels. Well, I can understand that, Three Girlies. You've got two girlies of your own, and I would imagine if you were in this father's situation, you would be also outraged. Rightfully so. Now, so I sort of mentioned the lawsuit argument. If there was somebody who was really covering this up, if they had a duty to the students and they failed to adhere to that duty, I think that opens them up to, well, certainly civil lawsuits, no doubt about that. Lawsuits all over the place, but criminality is sort of a higher standard. You'd have to have something that was a guilty mind, something that rose to the level of failing to protect a student that would violate a vulnerable child type of a statute. Another one from Buttered Toast says, sorry for the late question. If I have a child I raise and they decide one day that through an ideologue teacher that they are not the sex they are, can I put them up for adoption because disowning them will be considered child abuse if I kick them out? I don't know if I'm saying this right. I mean, I'm now liable for underage indoctrinated kid that I don't have any say in how to raise. Shouldn't I leave the kid to the state so that they can raise them since they know best? It's a good question, right? And this just may be where it goes from now. Yeah, you just, oh, they're your kids now. Oh, it's your house. Yeah, I guess it's your kids too. You get everything else that you need. Have fun. I know you're being facetious, Buttered Toast, but it's, you know, I don't know, maybe it's coming. Perry Masonary says, guess the DOJ will be investigating the Board of Education, not that father is a terrorist. Yeah, the father. Go get the father. Can you believe what he did? He was angry that his daughter got raped. Unbelievable. Lock him up. Be Brave says, any idea why it's not politically correct to say rape, to soften the sound of the crime, or to group them all together? Well, I don't know. I've been saying it a lot on this particular segment. Do they try not to say it? You're right. They say sexual assault, right? I get what your point is. Another one from Vientica says, I spent a few years working with kids. I've seen my fair share of bad parents. This guy doesn't seem like one off of first impression, but most of the bad parents I saw were the ones who were telling their kids and even pressuring them to blindly go along with things. I spent a lot of the efforts trying to reach kids, teach them how to be responsible for their own education and how to learn what you really need to learn from school. However, just like when I was teaching, a lot of it was like pulling teeth from a chicken. So with people pulling their kids out of schools and homeschooling them, I have to wonder how many are just going along with another narrative and just blindly pressuring the kids. Yeah, it's a new cause that people can identify with and they can kill each other over it and, you know, just how it is. I'm Not Gas says, Rob, are you familiar with the concept of anarcho-tyranny? Basically, the de facto system of governments we are living under. The government is happier oppressing and selectively enforcing laws who threaten to shake up the managerial class are happy to ignore the actual violent criminals as they do not challenge the status quo. Therefore, normal citizens are living under a state of tyranny and anarchy simultaneously. That's interesting, I'm Not Gas. I've not heard of that. I've heard of anarcho-capitalism and things like that, but anarcho-tyranny. Gonna have to look into that one. Thanks for sharing it. A few more on this segment before we wrap up with Hunter Biden. Monster One says a 7-year-old doesn't know about gender. If a 7-year-old says they are transgender, it's the parents pushing it on them. I think so. I think that is accurate, but I don't know. Good question. TOS Forever says the father is too calm and kind. As a woman with 8 granddaughters, can the father contact the American Center for Justice and take the union and the feds to court? They are destroying family to communism. That's from TOS Forever. Yeah, hopefully they lawyer up. I mean, they absolutely should. The family went through something. Yeah. Sergeant Bob says, woo, rape kit was done. Without the evidence, it would be a denial. Yeah, really good thing that he threw a stink about it and that it went somewhere. Let's take a look at some super chats that came in. Wolfgang Deo's in the house, got several questions, says, if that is a domestic terrorist, then I guess I stand with the domestic terrorists. Why are the domestic terrorists not getting free military equipment like the Taliban? That's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question. Scott Smith should ask for his $85 billion in military gear. Wolfgang also says, if no one is attracted to the gender fluid, yet the gender fluid are attracted to everyone else, perhaps they should focus on protecting normies. That's from Wolfgang Deo. Tiger with Ziffies here says, a story is disturbing. I don't agree with co-ed bathrooms, but I'm not sure how gender-specific bathrooms prevent assault. The rapist can't sneak in? It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, if you're allowed in the bathroom, well, we're seeing a lot of new things are happening in bathrooms these days. For example, you can just go in and film U.S. senators going pee. It's a brave new America now. A lot of new things are happening in bathrooms. It's really hard to tell where the lines are. Complicated. Wolfgang says, more focus on these people minimizes the cost onto the rest of us. Like, does anyone know which demographic leads the suicide numbers in America? I've heard that the statistics on that, they're high, they're not good for that demographic. Nadarb says, parents, you need to demand every single classroom has a live feed that parents can watch whenever school's in session. We have these great laws called FOIAs, Freedom of Information Acts, laws that average citizens need to start taking advantage of them and getting as much info as you can on the school and teachers and police reports. Expose this stuff, he says, which is a great idea. Speech Unleashed says, I think the school board should be liable for negligence if they can't think ahead that hormonally charged teens wouldn't try to take advantage of a trans access policy to get a peek at the opposite sex in the bathroom, then they shouldn't be making policies for high schools. I agree. Like, you should be considering those topics. And you might want to say, are there any incidents around this new policy that we should be made aware of before we think about it? No, everything's fine. Like, no problems at all. Everything's good. And they say, okay, perfect. We're just going to pass it. 3 Girlie says, I know exactly how this father is feeling. He did everything that he put into he did everything that he put in that moment. It is hard to be a parent of a child who has been raped. This had to have been even harder because he had sent his daughter to a place he thought was safe. And then to find out that no one did anything to help his daughter and prevent it from happening to somebody else. More importantly, they were opening up even bigger capabilities for these incidents to happen to more girls. Father was voicing the incident so that the school board would not open this up for more transgendered male to female to enter the female bathroom. Absolutely repugnant and infuriating. The girlies have had a friend who is transgendered, female to male. This person goes to school with them, and they have a hard time going into the boys' bathroom for fear that something will happen. They actually use the restroom in the female bathroom. Female to male continues to use the female bathroom. Wow, okay, so that's pretty interesting. All right. That was from 3 Girlies. Let's see what else we've got. We've got another one from Hunter says, hey, why not put a CCTV in the bathrooms and send me the tapes? None of that here, Hunter. Go back to your crack house where that is allowed. Vientika says, be warned, the trade-off to cameras in classrooms is the Karens get the access too. It's a good point, Vientika. Always thinking globally. That, my friends, is it for that segment. Thank you for all of those amazing questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com and on YouTube amazing stuff over there as well. Okay, we've got one final segment here on the show before we wrap up for the day. The Hunter Biden, Joe Biden saga continues. New emails have been leaked that show that Hunter Biden was communicating with his business partner. We're going to dig into the emails specifically, but there are some indications that maybe there was a commingling of money or accounts or at least services that might implicate the president, Joe Biden. Daily Mail has an exclusive on this. They gave us the headlines and the intro. We're going to dig into the emails here in a second, but they say that Joe Biden could become embroiled in the FBI's probe into Hunter's finances. And remember this, Hunter Biden came out earlier the year and said, yeah, I am in fact under investigation by the FBI, but not that serious because I can still go sell my horrific paintings for $75,000 a pop, $500,000 a pop for some of them. But, I am under investigation. So new emails have been revealed showing that Biden, the president, and Hunter, the son, shared bank accounts. They paid each other's bills, and the president may have even funded a 2018 drug and prostitution binge. Now, that was after he was, vice president. That was during Trump's term, but still very curious stuff going on here. You can see Hunter, the man that Joe Biden calls the smartest person on the planet, over here to his right. Joe Biden, according to the Daily Mail, could be embroiled in the FBI investigation of Hunter's finances. I doubt it, given the fact that he's the president, but okay. Emails that were recovered by the Daily Mail from Hunter's abandoned laptop show emails between Hunter and this guy, Eric Sherwin. He was a business partner at the consultancy called Rosemont Seneca. We're going to see a bunch of emails from Eric Sherwin and Rosemont Seneca. They show that Sherwin was working on Joe's taxes. He was discussing the father and son paying each other over their household bills. And this guy, who was with Rosemont Seneca, not with the vice president's office or the White House in any capacity, he was fielding requests for a book deal for then vice president. He was managing the donation of Joe's Senate papers to the University of Delaware. And the question, of course, is why was he doing that? Why was Sherwin so intimately involved in the vice presidential affairs when all of this should have gone to the White House or the vice president's office? You have a consultant who's Hunter Biden's business partner fielding book deals and talking about Senate papers. Who is this guy? Hunter claims that he and his father share a bank account, also raises serious questions about whether funds from the joint account were used for Hunter's prostitution bender. So we're going to take a quick look at some of these emails and get into them. Here is one from Eric Sherwin. You can see we don't know where this one goes, but he says, this is back from 2010. And so, of course, we can frame the timeline out. Barack Obama, 2018 to 2006. I'm sorry, 2008 to 2016. Yeah, that's right. So Joe Biden was the vice president back during this time in 2010. Your dad's Delaware tax, he said, the refund check came today. Okay, so says, I'm depositing it in his account and I'm writing a check in that amount back to you since he owes it to you. Don't think I need to run it by him, but if you want to, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to deposit it tomorrow. So is this guy's doing the taxes for the vice president? And why does Joe Biden owe Hunter Biden his tax refund? I don't know, but it's probably very complicated president, vice president, presidential son business that I'm not aware of. Eric Sherwin blocked all of his tweets. So I tried to look into this guy a little bit. He's the president of RSP Investments, currently on, some U.S. commission for something or other. Tweets are protected, so can't really see what he's getting into over there. But we know from the Daily Mail that last December, Hunter said in a public statement, I'm under investigation for my tax affairs. Former federal prosecutor, somebody who's an expert on money laundering, said, yeah, this might be a problem. Whatever transaction you're looking at, if there's a connection to a family member or friend, the answer is, yeah, they should be investigated. But obviously, if you're talking about the president of the U.S., you better have a pretty damn good reason to talk to that person. Basically hinting here that, yeah, there's a lot of smoke here. Where's it going to go? What are you saying? They're going to investigate the president? Get out of here. FBI and IRS probe Looking into foreign business relationships, Senate Security Report came out, said that there was a $1 billion business deal between Hunter's company. He co-founded this company with Sherwin. It's called Rosemont Seneca. There was a big deal for $1 billion with the Chinese oil giant CEFC. A lot of people have been following this for a long time. There's more evidence of a deep commercial relationship between Hunter's firm and the vice presidential's office back during Joe's tenure. Allegations that Rosemont received special tickets and all sorts of private tours for their clients and their associates. So let's take a look at the emails. First example that we have, this is from Eric Sherwin. You can see it's from Eric Sherwin. This is back on April 13th, 2010. It's about the U.S.-Spain Council, and Eric is forwarding this to Hunter and telling Hunter, let's discuss. So what does Eric want to discuss? Eric is down here. Hunter is up here. It says Danny O'Brien called. Who's Danny O'Brien? He's the chief of staff to Senator Menendez. So Danny O'Brien called Hunter's business partner, Eric, didn't call the vice president's office. Interesting. He's the chair of the U.S.-Spain Council. Spanish members include CEOs, major banks, all of this other stuff. Having their annual meeting in D.C. would be great if you made an appearance. Somebody mentioned your interest in Spain. That's why Danny is calling us. Sounds interesting. Let's discuss. Probably don't want to mention the transatlantic in case we can't deliver, though, I guess. So you've got Eric Sherwin, Hunter Biden's business partner, setting up deals between senators. Not going to the White House, though. Curious. Also, another example. We have Sherwin here involved in the process of gifting Joe's Senate papers to the University of Delaware. So we have a very interesting conversation between somebody who is actually from the vice president's office, Katharina Oyama. She sent an email over to Sherwin on March 2010 detailing the restrictions that the White House attorney was recommending over the release of the papers. So again, this is coming from Katharine Oyama over at the vice president's office. Says, hi, Eric. Just communicating with you about all this stuff. The proposed deed of the gift, as you can see, terms are very, very favorable to the university. Just asking you to negotiate this. The White House is going to have strong views on any of these releases. The deed states that title to the material passes to the University of Delaware, timing issues, opportunity for review, right? And so it's nothing that's groundbreaking, revelations. But the question is, why is this guy doing all of this negotiation? It's Hunter Biden's business partner. And they're talking specifically to him. Michael Mongan, deputy counsel to the vice president. Eric, Cynthia requested I email you the draft deed. Please feel free to contact me if you have any other information. So you know what this reminds me of? Are Hillary Clinton's emails. Remember how she handled that whole thing? Something at, hc@clintonemail.com, right? She was funneling everything outside of the formal chain of command. She didn't want emails going to sos.gov, secretaryofstate.gov. She wanted them going to her private email server. Why? So it was all off the books, so that it wasn't her people doing it because of public record and open meeting laws and all of that stuff we have. So she created a separate email account, was funneling everything that direction. This is back in 2010. This was before we all learned about what Hillary was doing. This was before she ran against Trump and it became a gigantic problem for her. And so everybody was doing this little grift. Oh, no, it's not. I'm not going to let the White House staff do this or the vice presidential office do this. We're just going to funnel this all over through a third-party intermediary. Very, very convenient, isn't it? So Hillary was doing it back then. Same thing that Joe Biden was doing. Hunter complained previously, said half of my salary is going to paying my father's bills while he was VP, casted doubt on Joe Biden's previous claims. In 2019, he texted his daughter, Noemi, said, I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this family for 30 years. So Hunter Biden is just taking a ton of money and then doling it back out to everybody in the family. Hunter paid for Joe's $190 a month AT&T bill. 2018 email to one of his own assistants. Hunter complained that he'd been shut out of his own bank account, that his father had been using it. Too many cooks in the kitchen, he said. Happened 10 days ago. My dad has been using most lines on this account, which I've, through the gracious offerings of Eric, have paid for the past 10 years. More indication that they're paying bills for each other comes from this email. So Eric Sherwin says, emails this over to Hunter, says, hey, Hunter, FYI, I got a few outstanding bills that we need to take care of. I'm not sure which ones are a priority and which one should be paid out of, look at this, quote, my account. See this right here? Quote, my account, and which should be put on hold and paid out of the, quote, Wilmington Trust Social Security check account. So it goes, should this come from my bank account or from the other one? Let me know if you want it to come from mine. It says, FYI, your workers' compensation premium came due. That was $632. Fran person is owed $436. Things he paid for on your trip to Arizona and Madrid. So he's got to reimburse that. We have your first bill from a new line of credit from the Senate Credit Union. It's $383 a month. Going to pay for that. Number of other things from Mike Christopher's bills. $1,300 for air conditioning. Stone retaining wall, $2,600. Another bill for $1,000 for your golf. You played there last August. To be honest, tried to call them a few times to pay, but they haven't gotten back to us. Finally, I want to discuss your rental income you're going to be receiving for leasing out Mom's cottage. Since this counts as income, we're going to hold a little back to pay taxes at the end of the year. I want to discuss your thoughts with that as well. Yeah, so divvying this up. Should it come from my account or from your account? Hunter Biden's getting workers' compensation as well. Amazing. It says Mike Christopher. Hey, it says, hey, somebody over there at Biden's office. Mike Christopher is hassling me on a couple of smaller things. I haven't heard from your dad. I know he's busy, but can you two review the email I sent to you? Let me know. So Hunter is doing pseudo-official business with his father through a third party. And it's stuff that is generally appropriate, I would think, to go through the vice president's office. This was a book meeting request. So Susan Mercandetti, editor-at-large over at Random House Publishing Group, says, good morning, Eric. I'm sure you're still compiling requests. So Susan wanted to get the Joe Biden book deal. So she sends an email. Kathy Chung passed your email around. So Susan sends an email to Eric and says, hey, we want the book deal. Eric sends back, says, yeah, we're going to go ahead and collect all of the different inquiries. We'll get back to you. Forwards this over to Hunter. Anything I need to do with this right now? You want to forward this or you want to hold on to it? Talk to your dad. Let me know what he wants to do to work out the book deal. Another bill you can see. $800 for Bill Morgan. It's not a bad split. Do you and Bo want to split it? Should I ask Val, Sarah, or your dad? I want to get this paid sooner rather than later. It's for Bill Morgan for stuff he did for Mom, right? And so some of this might just be regular, ordinary, accountant, taxation stuff. Or some of it might be a lot of smoke where there's a lot more fire. Here's another one. The Office of the Vice President. You can see down here. They have 250 tickets to the Easter egg roll. Your mom also has another, Dr. Jill, also has, Dr. Mom, also has another 200 tickets. It's all coming out of your mom's allotment. Let's see. We can pass on names for outreach. We can think we got 50 spots. More importantly, Office of VP wants to fill the spots for State Mexico dinner. Do you think Lorenzo's on the list already for this? So sort of a commingling, right? Where are those tickets going? Who are those things going to? So in an ordinary, sane country, right, you'd have a investigation that worked its way through, and you'd have some clear answers about Joe Biden's commingling of his assets with his son, which many people have been talking about for months, including us here on this channel, even when the mainstream media was doing everything they could to bury the story. We talked about Tony Bobulinski. We talked about all the emails, the multiple various different laptops that were left all over the place. And people would go absolutely bananas and bonkers if this was Trump's kid, right? Donald Trump's kid had a meeting with some Russian ambassador in a Trump tower, and they hyperventilated about that for about 7 years, as far as I can tell, even before it happened. So it's kind of nonsense. Let's see what you have to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, jumping into your questions, and then we will wrap it up for the day. Let's see. Hunter Biden's here, says, don't worry, Rob. I'll send all the videos from the bathroom to my dad. I got a lot of money, and he's going to use it. Sergeant Bob says, you think Merrick Garland's going to be all over this? I don't think so. I think Merrick Garland is basically asleep at the wheel. I think Lisa Monaco's running this whole thing, and she's not going to do anything about this, nor is anybody at the Justice Department. Probably the FBI either. Viantica says, Biden obviously never watched the movie Hollywood Homicide. Harrison's Ford character was constantly bothered by commingling funds in that movie. You know, I've never seen it either, Vienticus, but I do like Harrison Ford. Wonder if it's any good. Commingling, it's not good. We have Antifa says just a couple of peaceful rapes and sodomy. Nothing to see here. Monster One says, I don't know if this needs to be said, but just imagine if this was Trump. Could you imagine if it was Don Jr. doing this? There was 15,000 news stories about whether or not Ivanka farted and blamed someone else. There was 20,000 news stories about whether or not Trump's grandkid built a Lego set all by himself. Right, it's hysterical nonsense. If it's your team, though, you make sure that nobody talks about it. You bury that to the end of the earth. Monster One said, you said there was a lot of smoke here. Yeah, it's coming from Hunter's crack pipe. Good one, Monster One. Speech Unleashed says, when Trump was in office, all we heard about was the possible intermingling of money and expenses between Trump, his wife, children, but with Hunter, the media is quiet. Does anyone need any more proof of the mass media is in the pocket of Biden? Even when he insults the media to a foreign leader. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi was out there scolding the media, saying, you're not doing enough to sell the Build Back Better plan. She was very angry at them. And the fact that she feels like she can talk to them like that tells you everything you need to know. Eric Sherwin is here. He watched the show. I tried to follow him on Twitter. I requested follow. But since his tweets are protected, he's got to approve me. Maybe he did. Maybe he's here. Eric's here. Says, isn't it obvious? I'm in love with Hunter. I'm covering his ass, literally. Every time I look into those puppy dog eyes, I just want to change his diaper. That's a beautiful thing. You know, that's a narrative that I wasn't thinking about here. The show kind of goes, you know, kind of full circle. We're talking about gender identity. We're talking about bathroom stuff. And now we've got Eric has come out now. He said that he's covering Hunter Biden's ass, which is, that makes sense. A lot of interesting things out of this family. Monster One says, you thought the Parmesan cheese story was bad. One time I was at Congress and something white fell out of Jerry Nadler's pants. I got so excited, I immediately picked it up and ran into the bathroom to put it in my crack pipe. Turns out it wasn't crack, though. It was a piece of Nadler's dirty diaper, and I smoked it anyways. Oh, that is just the worst thing I've ever heard. Terrible. We've got Monster One says, last question was from Hunter Biden, not me. Thank you, Monster One. I'm going to revise the prior comment. Oh, yeah, that's just amazing. Let's see what else. Three Girly says, so you read that Senator Menendez was going through Eric from Rosemont Seneca to negotiate things instead of the vice president's office. It makes me wonder how many other senators and office holders in the federal government are going to be taken down by Hunter's laptop. I'm sure there'll be many more that comes out of this laptop if they're just finding out about Joe and Hunter's joint bank account. Right. That would be the suspicion, right? The feds would take let's get a subpoena for those bank records. Let's go get a subpoena, a warrant. Let's go take a look at Aaron Sherwin's records. Let's see where this rabbit hole leads. And it would probably implicate everybody, which is exactly why you know it's not going to happen because they're not going to let that bag of worms get out, are they? Just Cows is here, says free Crowder. Free Crowder. Did Steven Crowder get banned from something? Is he in trouble? Let's see if there's any things here. Hard strike from YouTube. Uh-oh. Steven Crowder, did he get 55 minutes ago? Uh-oh. YouTube is coming for him. So we better take a close look at what's going on here because your boys could be next. Oh! Hate speech policy. Great. We're doomed. Let's take a look at what's going on here. Counsel. This is from to Bill Richmond, subject Steven Crowder. Let's see here. Counsel for YouTube. Let's see what Crowder has to say. Hard strike from YouTube, and wow, this is terrifying. We covered specific we're talking about this right now. Documented instances of rape YouTube said not allowed. All parents should take note. If you believe in the insane notion of biological sex, you're going to be silenced. Oh, great. So it's perfectly appropriate to what we've talked about here on our first segment today. Let's see. It says, we write again on YouTube's behalf regarding your client, Steven Crowder. YouTube has repeatedly instructed Mr. Crowder regarding its hate speech policy, warned him against continuing violations of that policy through the content he posted to YouTube. YouTube specifically informed Crowder that videos he uploaded showed a pattern of recklessly targeting LGBT plus Q community for abuse and insults. Warned that further uploading of the content that targets insults or insults those people will result in additional penalties. It says on September 30th, Crowder uploaded another video that YouTube determined continues his prior conduct. It's entitled Alex Jones on the Great Reset, Joe Rogan triggers leftists again. It contains a segment that targets the transgender community in an offensive manner by indicating that trans people pose a rape threat to women. Okay. Consistent with the recklessness provisions of its hate speech policy, YouTube removed the video and assessed a strike. This results in a 1-week freeze. Further violation will result in additional penalties. On an additional note, when an account is restricted from using YouTube, the channel operator is prohibited from using any other channels to get around it, so he cannot use things like Crowder Bits or his other channels. Such conduct may result in his termination. So there you go, folks. There it is. YouTube is... what else have they done? They got a new vaccine policy. They have a new global warming policy. And now they've got a transgender hate speech policy, I guess. So Crowder got a strike. And we'll see who else gets some of those strikes. Thank you for flagging that for us. That was from Just Cows. So very interesting stuff. They're just narrowing that speech bubble that is allowed. Fortunately, we are over on locals. We're also over on Rumble, and we're going to keep talking about what we're talking about. We do try to be respectful to everybody, and we try to follow the rules, but sometimes things can get a little bit hairy. Let's take a look. We've got a couple other questions that came in while I was reading that. We've got Wolfgang Deo says, Rob, it was nice being able to super chat you once more. Unfortunately, this will probably be the last one. Yeah, it's probably the end of the line for us here also. Keep fighting. Wishing the best. Thank you, Wolfgang. Hopefully we don't get banned. I don't think we've done anything overly wrong, but who knows? All right, let's take a look at some amazing new members who signed up over at... Wait a minute. Do we have any more questions here that have come in since I was reading that thing over from Crowder? Let's go back over here. Yeah, a couple other questions came in. Monster One says that this is on the Hunter Biden clip. You know that someone's going to impeach Trump over this. Another one from Perry Masonary says, Dr. Jill, nothing to see here. Move on. The mainstream media has dutifully applied. Moving on past Hunter's stuff. I'm Not Gas says, so is YouTube now an accessory to covering up rape? I didn't see that clip from from Crowder. I don't know what was in there, but this is actual news that's happening. So if he was covering that stuff, not sure what's up. Peely Wally says, I just want to say corruptions. Who would have thought? They seem so nice. Not. We have another one from Porky Pig says, ba-deep, 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 ba-deep. That's all, folks. It's been real, my friends. I don't think we violated any rules. Nadarb says, the feds know Ray and Barr both had financials ties to Rosemont Seneca, so they won't be doing anything. Rosemont has ties to EcoHealth, at least according to a few articles that I have read. Thank you for that, Nadarb. Let's see. We've got another one from TOS Forever says that obviously taxpayer funding. Can Americans sue for our taxes back? No, you cannot. It's the government's money. They take it, you give it up, or you go to jail. Monster One says trans women can rape women in schools, now in schools, but let's make sure no one gets their feelings hurt. Yeah. I guess you can't talk about that anymore, Monster One. I don't know. Wolfgang Deo says, let's go, YouTube. What a world. It's like a cat and mouse game, just trying to figure out how you can even communicate on these platforms anymore. It's pretty frustrating stuff, but we're going to keep making do. Hope Crowder, hopefully he comes back, but he'll be all right. He's got a huge platform. He's got counsel. He's got multiple different channels. So I think he'll be all right. But some of the smaller channels, they just get extinguished. They've got no support. So we'll see where that goes. Let's welcome some new people who signed up over at our community at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You can see down here, we've got Lynn Fish, Germs is in the house, Sniper 275, Lau Patricia, Paula Revere, HSDNP. We've got Ty Livin, Maxim 27, Unbridled Form, Aviatrix, Burnt to a Crisp 622, and Let's Be Fair, all joining us over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And if you are a supporter over there, as I mentioned at the start of the show, I'm going to be trying to do a little bit more locals exclusive only content. We did our first one today. It was a show prep show, super casual, just kind of looked at some headlines, got some ideas from the community there, went through some of the posts that were there on locals from the morning, just to try to get a gauge of what we should be talking about today. And we talked about some of the things that we said we should talk about. So it was kind of a fun thing to do. And I'm not going to be able to do that every day, but I do want to sort of get behind the camera earlier in the morning. And by being able to kind of sit down and do kind of a casual good morning stream, it's a good way to warm things up for the day. And so I'm going to be trying to do those when my mornings allow. So if you want to be a part of those, it is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And we also have monthly meetups. Next one is coming up Saturday, November 6th from 7 to 8 p.m. They are a ton of fun. Hopefully you can join us and join the great community at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And that, my friends, is it for me for the day. I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show. Appreciate a like, appreciate a thumbs up, appreciate comments on this if you're watching it after the fact. It is something that really helps us grow our channel. I'm looking at my metrics. YouTube is not really showing this channel or our live streams outside of our bubble. It's really strange. On my other channels, I can see more engagement, but this one, it's like just limited. The people who are subscribed watch it, but they don't show it to anybody else, which is just strange. So a share would be very much appreciated. Send a clip to a friend or something like that. I would love you to death if you did it. Otherwise, we're going to be back here same time, same place tomorrow. Do it all again. 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And for that one Florida man, everybody else have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. See you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.